Zip it again, this time London. He held on! You shall not pass! Dive! That's a touchdown! On the field, there's Mooney! Got it! Mike Tuck, dive! That's a touchdown! Wide open touchdown Atlanta! Intercepted base! Here's Bijan Robinson, bangs into the end zone! He held on! And that's an Atlanta touchdown!
With the 8th pick.
If you were to say who are the most versatile offensive weapons in football right now,
Bijan Robinson.
What a one-handed catch by Beaver.
the Falcons drafted the fourth one.
Base, and he made the first guy miss.
That is just sheer talent and individual effort.
Heavens.
Robinson. Whoa.
Wait a second now. Let's get the list.
The number 8th overall pick going to the Atlanta Falcons.
In action after a 3-week hiatus. Here's Penix near side. Penix towards the end zone. Can he get there? Shoved out inside the 5. It'll be first.
To me, it looked like he came up. It was a little harder for him to come back from there.
Having its best season in decades, but the player most responsible for that, well, he is done for the year.
Try not to dwell on the past and just let him know like things happen for a reason.
You know, I feel like adversity, it definitely shows people, you know, their true selves, you know, and obviously in the NFL, you know, it's a league of adversity, and I know that whenever I went through adversity, I came out on top.
A man who was at Indiana, led them to having success in the Big Ten, something that they haven't seen before that. Then he goes over to Washington with Kalen DeBoer, and he has immediate success.
Coach Kalen DeBoer, the biggest reason why I ended up going there, you know, just me believing in him believing in me, just us kicking it off to a great start, and ended up having a great 2 years. I had a lot of fun. You know, that's the main thing. You know, I remember whenever I was going through that tough time, and you know, I was trying to get back, you know, to just playing and just playing free and stuff like that. My dad, he used to always text me and call me. He's like, just have fun. When you have fun, you're doing great.
They can't mess with us.
Every year you come across rare players that are top-notch players and top-notch people.
Yeah, Bijan. Bijan? Yeah. Ready to roll, man? Oh, yeah. Let's get started.
In that class, Bijan was one of them.
What's up, man? Terry Fontenot.
How you doing, Mike? Hey.
Good, man.
Mike. Hey, how you doing? Hey, man, you ready to be a Falcon, bro? Yes, sir. Let's do it.
You've got a team that's been at the top of your division for a while. You've got to figure out what do we need to do to overcome this one hurdle that's preventing us from our goal. I definitely think this will be a defense-focused offseason for them. They obviously have spent the last few years upgrading their weapons with Bijan and Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and now you have your quarterback and Michael Penix, and so now it's time to get that defense.
Now a touchdown for Ryan. Julio, did he get it? He did. Kyle
welcome you back to Flowery Branch, Georgia and Ticketmaster Studios as we start to count down the minutes to the most exciting weekend in the NFL offseason. That, of course, is the NFL draft. Last year, Raheem Morris said the Falcons wouldn't be in the top 10 for picks in the foreseeable future, and he was right. The Falcons now sit with the 15th overall pick in this year's NFL draft, and then 4 picks in the coming days. Thank you guys for joining us for the pre-draft show presented by Bud Light. Taylor Vismor, Derek Rackley, we've got a packed show for you guys. We've got a couple special guests, but before we get into it, I mean, this is an exciting time to be an Atlanta Falcon. How excited are you entering night one?
I mean, it's an exciting time for football fans, for the NFL. 2025 NFL Draft, you are on the clock. Okay, maybe not officially, but we are on the clock as we are here and we're about to talk about the draft. We've been doing it for a couple of weeks now. The build-up, it's getting closer. We're inside of 1 hour until the very first pick comes off the board.
So exciting. And I think what's so fun about this, and I mentioned it at the top of the show, is like really anything can happen because like Raheem Morris said last year, the Falcons were not going to be in the top 10 of picks. Again, really talking about and as to why they decided to go for Michael Penix with that number 8 overall pick last year. It's been about 365 days since then. I don't think anyone thought the Falcons would take Michael Penix, but over the last year, from OTAs and from rookie minicamp to training camp to starting at the end of the season, what did you see from Michael Penix and how excited are you for him to be the new starter going into 2025?
Well, as somebody that was not out on the practice field, I didn't really get a chance to see him a whole lot until we got a chance to see him in the games late in the season. But we do know about Michael Penix is he had 14 games or 15 weeks to sit back and learn from Kirk Cousins. And you could probably make the arguments now as far as how that learning went, but you learn from good situations and bad situations. And then finally, towards the end of the season, maybe a little bit prematurely for the organization, he got his chance to be on the field and we saw some flashes. I don't think you put him in at that point in the season and think that all of a sudden he's going to become the savior. Mm-hmm. You're looking at what can we build on in the future. And he showed in each game that he was a starter that there are some things that he brings to the table that are just a little bit more special, hence the reason why they went to get him at number 8.
Yeah, well, I actually did have opportunities to see him on the practice field, which was so fun during the entirety of the season, from rookie minicamp, training camp, and then obviously when he was a starter towards the end of that season. And something that I noticed about Michael Penix from the start of him being drafted was he has this composure about him. And he never gets too high, he never gets too low. He doesn't ride this emotional roller coaster, and that's exactly what you want in a starting quarterback, especially in the NFL. I mean, you can't be a good starting quarterback and ride the emotional roller coaster, much less be great. And I think that's what Michael Penix's potential is to be a great quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be able to show your composure in the great situations and adversity. Like when things start working against you, you get sacked on back-to-back plays. You end up finding yourself behind 14 points early in the game. How do you respond from that? And I think there's a lot to build on just because he's got that calm, cool, and collected nature. Now, here's what I will tell you. We are building up to the 2025 NFL Draft, and we're going to see who the Atlanta Falcons end up taking in the first round, and we're thinking that that person is going to help change the complexion of the 2025 season. I'm going to tell you that there's one guy that has the best chance to do that, and his name is Michael Penix. He was the selection last year. Here's the reason why. Who is going to touch the football in every single offensive snap? Your quarterback. Who's got the ability to directly impact the game anytime he's out on the field? Your quarterback. Now, does Atlanta need an edge rusher? Because that's what's been talked about for over a year. Yes, they need an edge rusher. Does an edge rusher touch the football every single play? Taylor, can you answer that for me?
He does not.
Does an edge rusher have the ability to score, put points on the board every single time he's on the field?
No, he doesn't. Well,
you would like to think so.
You would like to think so. He could do something crazy.
It'd be great if he did. However, the quarterback is the guy that if you have the right one, he produces, he performs under pressure, stays calm, stays collected. That's the guy in the NFL, in the National Football League, that propels you to win division titles, get you into the postseason, and ultimately compete for championships. Now, a lot to put on the shoulders of a quarterback, but guess what? That's the reason why those guys get paid the most money in the National Football League, and I think everybody's excited to see the development between year 1 and year 2 for Michael Penix.
Yeah, let me just say this, though, because when you're a quarterback in this league, you are only as good as the people around you, right? Not just your skill position players, but the guys in front of you as well, because Ryan Newsel is also someone that's touching the ball. Your center is touching the ball for every single play. And I think it's that Terry Fontenot in this front office, even before Terry Fontenot and this ownership, has shown this desire to put the best starting roster on offense every single week possible. You look at the last couple of years, you got Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and then you've got Kyle Pitts. Before that, you've got Caleb McGarry and Chris Lindstrom, and even before that, you've got Jake Matthews, 72% of this starting offense right now, they were drafted by the Falcons in either the first or the second round. The only guy that was drafted in the second round was Matthew Bergeron, who was a very early second-round pick. They were going after Matthew Bergeron hard. When you look at the last 7 first-round picks here, you've got to think that this was a mission for Terry Fontenot and this ownership with Arthur Blank for a long time coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people, especially if you study the NFL and you look at the Atlanta Falcons offense, you're going to say that this team is set up to win. You've got an offensive line that's veteran, that's very good, that's under contract. You got a wide receiver that was drafted in the first round a few years ago in Drake London that can go up and high point the football with the best of them in the business. Bijan Robinson, I think they asked Saquon Barkley, who he thought were the 5 best running backs in the league outside of him. Guess what? He was already in that conversation. Tyler Algier behind him. You got a really talented tight end in Kyle Pitts that I think people want to see a little bit more, and maybe it's Michael Penix that ends up getting a little bit more out of him, and then who knows who ends up getting added to this offense as we continue to move down the road. The offense is set up for success. Now it's time to add some of those building blocks to the defense, and we did see on that list, it was A.J. Terrell was the one that was highlighted. That's just a little bit different because he was the first-round pick back in 2020. He is still on this team. He is still the starter. He is considered a lockdown player. 16th overall in 2020. By the way, remember, Raheem Morris, Jeff Ulbrich, they were on that defensive staff when he was drafted here. Only defensive first-round pick in the last 8 years, and as we mentioned, he signed a contract extension, so he's not going anywhere anytime soon. But who's going to play alongside him? Taylor, you talked about all the first and even second-round picks on the offensive side of the ball. A.J. Terrell's probably saying, where are the other first and second-round picks that are going to play next to me?
Exactly.
And maybe this year he gets one of those guys on the defense.
Exactly. Something that you mentioned it a little bit. You barely touched on it. The last time that the Falcons took someone first round as a defensive player, Terry Fontenot was not here. This front office was not here. But 2 guys that were here were Raheem Morris, and Jeff Ulbrich. They are now back together. Raheem Morris, of course, the head coach. Jeff Ulbrich is now the defensive coordinator. Let me ask you this. When you look at last season and what went down last season for the defense, why was it necessary to make a leadership change on the defensive side of the ball?
It seemed to me because there was a disconnect in what the expectations were defensively, knowing that, again, before 2025, this was the same story last year. I think you and I were up here saying the Atlanta Falcons should have selected Dallas Turner last year as a guy that could get after the quarterback. So the tenor has not really changed on the defensive side of the ball. The disconnect that I'm talking about is Raheem Morris likely telling Jimmy Lake, the entire defensive staff, we have got to get after the quarterback. And then you saw through the first point of the season, before the bye week, that wasn't happening, okay? 0.9 sacks per game, and it was the discussion that basically everybody that was an analyst around the National Football League was talking about with the Falcons. Their inability to get after the quarterback and just not able to get off the field defensively. And so when that happens, that's a time where the head coach has to sit back, reflect, evaluate, and say, how do we get better as an organization, and how do we get closer to our goals? Because every player, every coach, and by the way, front office and ownership, they want to be in the postseason. And you get to the postseason on defense, when you get after the quarterback, you affect the quarterback, but you get off the field on third down and you get takeaways. Just something that Atlanta hasn't done all of those at a high level, and they've got to find a way to change the tide. So looking for Jeff Ulbrich to come in and change a little bit of the direction defensively and find some ways from a scheme perspective, Taylor, to be able to get after the opposing quarterback more.
Exactly. I think it really shows. I mean, we just talked about ad nauseum. There was a commitment to get this offense rolling and really ready to go out and win games. With this hiring of Jeff Ulbrich now and Raheem Morris' second year, it shows a commitment to making this defense ready to go out and win so that this team can win on all 3 phases of the ball. We can't only rely on special teams or only on defense or only on offense. I think this shows from the front office, from the head coaches, from ownership as well, there's a commitment now to build a full team from all three phases of the ball. Actually, though, our Tori McElhaney sat down with Jeff Ulbrich to get his opinion on what he wants to do here in Atlanta in his first year back as a defensive coordinator.
What's step one? When you are coming in here and you get the chance to know the players, the coaching staff around you, what's the goal, the first thing you want to check off?
Yeah, that is the first thing. Like, start to develop some relationships with not only the players but the coaches here. This defensive coaching staff, I'm not familiar with a lot of the guys, and that's a great positive, because it's just another opportunity for us to share different experiences, different scheme, different technique, and ultimately create something really special and new, and something that's never been done before. But the relationship part is the first part, because, you know, it's an old adage, but it's true that I don't care what you know until I know that you care. So developing some real authentic relationships across the board is going to be a big part of the success we have.
When it comes to what you're wanting to infuse with the unit, what is maybe a word or a foundation that you want to lay very early on with this group?
Yeah, and you guys are going to hear this from me a lot, and it's not just words to me. I know a lot of coaches have these sayings, and I know sometimes they become comical to the casual fan, but to me this is who I am, and it's going to be something I speak on every single day. I'm going to start every meeting with it. It's going to become part of the players as well. This idea of heart, mind, fist, which I kind of started up in New York, and I'm ready for this thing to fly here, is the heart piece is, like I spoke to, the connection piece, and us really getting to know each other on a deep level, building strong relationships that we're going to lean on in the good times and the bad times. And the biggest part of that is, like, how do you demonstrate your love and regard for the man next to you? Well, how hard you're willing to play, how hard you're willing to prepare. So the heart piece is very important. The mind piece is the high-level execution. It's how we teach as teachers, how we adapt to the new age learner. It's how do we reach every single guy, because everybody learns in a different way. And then ultimately, like on Sundays, having the highest level execution in the league, you know, because we went so far and found out how each guy learns, and we connected to each guy. And then the fifth part is it's an obvious part from a football perspective of the violence of the game, you know, but it's bigger than that. Like, I would challenge your department, like, that we attack everything that we do, and that fist part is more of a it's more of just, it's a mindset in how we attack every task every single day. And so heart, mind, fist it'll be the foundation of the defense.
All right, he said we were going to hear it from him a lot, so let me remind you, the heart piece is the connection piece. How do you demonstrate your love and regard for the man next to you? The mind piece is the high-level execution, and ultimately having the highest level of execution in the league. The fist part is that we attack everything we do. It's a mindset of how we attack every task every single day. Heart, mind, fist will be the foundation of this defense. I mean, kind of a cool quote right there, heart, mind, fist right there. But overall, when you watch that clip, you hear how passionate he is about connecting with his players. We are now in the offseason program outside of the draft. Early on with your coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time where guys are going to get to know each other, and they're going to have that opportunity to connect, to build those relationships. And what I always try to tell people when they ask me some things about my playing career, I used to always tell them this, that you don't have to, when you hear relationship, you don't have to be best friends with everybody on the team. You don't have to go hang out with everybody on the team. You don't really have to respect everything that people do on your team, because some guys off the field might have completely different ideals than you do. However, in the building, on the field, you respect your teammates 110%, and you trust them, because we always talk about doing your 1/11th on the field, meaning you do your job and you have to trust that everybody else does their job. Well, part of that relationship piece to me is you're trusting that the guy on your left and the guy on your right is not only going to do their job, but they're going to execute it at an extremely high level. But as you mentioned, Taylor, this is the time for them to work on that. There's a lot of new faces in the building. There is every single year. There's a core of guys that will return, and there's a bunch of new guys. We're about to bring in a new class of players starting this weekend, but you've got to build those relationships, and you've got to earn the trust of your teammates, that not only you can trust them on the practice field, but you trust that when we step the foot on the field on game day, that they're going to do their job, and they're going to help you win football games, and all that starts right now.
Exactly. Well, Jeff Ulbrich really hit the ground running, because he's now connecting with his players, and now, including all of that, connecting with your players, he's going to the Combine, he's going to the Senior Bowl, he's going to Pro Days as well. That That's not just Jeff Ulbrich. It's the entire coaching staff. It's the entire scouting department. It is a haul to get to the draft. It's not just one little weekend. These guys and girls put in so much dedication and work and time into finding the right person to take first overall.
As a director of college, I oversee a team of 13, and this group, man, they scour the country. Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, West Coast. The process starts in the summertime where they hit the road like late July, early August to kind of gather information and make an eval piece. At this point, we're at a stage where obviously we've got the All-Star Game stuff knocked out, which was a crucial piece. You're able to see players come together in a competitive setting. Then you transition to the combine where it's obviously it's a bigger stage. You see them compete, you get a metric of how they test, their athletic ability. The interview piece, which is huge. Squeaky clean kids, they're clean, right? You just want to, you'll bring them in on a visit, you'll get to know those guys, but it's the first opportunity for the player, hey, you know, the whole year we're compiling information, we're hearing from others. Hearing from the pro liaison, hearing from their coaches, we'll talk to the lunch lady if we need to.
What's up, man? Terry Fontenot.
How you doing, Mike?
Good, man.
Now the player has this opportunity to kind of let us know his story, reveal his personality, any gaps we need to fill, we'll speak with those players.
We're process driven, so we're always focusing on the process and we're always looking for ways to adapt and improve. We have college scouts that spend a lot of time on these players to figure out that part. Are these guys going to be the right fits? Because we feel like we have a good culture and we have a good locker room in those areas, and we want to make sure we're adding really good players, but they got to fit that part. Anytime we bring in new coaches or new staff, we're always trying to evolve and adapt as best as we can.
I got so much confidence in what Terry's been able to do, building our offense, some of the young talent around our offense, be able to get some of those things going, and now really shifting the focus to some of the defensive needs that we have and be able to bring people in. And then it starts with, then it goes to the coaches, and then be able to develop some of the players that we already have on our roster, be able to add some new players that we can add to our roster, whether it be free agency, whether it be trade, whether it be the draft. I just think all of those things play a part of it.
Intercepted! Jordan Fuller to midfield!
Pressure, down he goes! Morgan Fox!
Divine Diablo. It's Leonard Floyd who gets home.
So Atlanta Falcons fans, Leonard Floyd here. I want to say rise up and feels good to be home. Let's go Falcons.
All right, well, I think Raheem Morris said it best, right? That now the Falcons organization is shifting their focus on building a better defense. So let's start talking about the NFL draft. We've talked about Michael Penix in the draft last year and the drafts of years past. Let's talk about what's about to happen in just a few moments. When you look at this Falcons defense, what are the biggest needs that they need to address over the next 3 days?
All right, well, so I'll just list the three that I think as it stands right now, and it's going to be edge rusher, of course. We've talked about that. I think corner is the other one, and to me, linebacker would be the third. Okay, but you end up kind of having to take a step back because in the draft, there's always this argument between best player available or the biggest need that you have on a team. And a lot of times you're looking to see whether or not those two end up just coming together at the right time. Well, is that going to happen this year? I don't know. We're going to find out when the Atlanta Falcons get on the clock, and we'll see what the previous 14 selections are in the draft. But I feel like edge rusher to pretty much everybody around the National Football League has been the hot button that needs to be addressed this year. Yes, we saw Lorenzo Carter coming in, but is it building for the future? Is it the guy that comes out of college that they can mold right away into what they want to a new defensive coordinator and start building around this extremely talented player, likely in the first round, and have him build year after year after year and try to get to see if this team, not only as a team, can get better in the pass rush department, but maybe we find an individual that finds himself with double-digit sacks. You've got to get a talented player, you got to put him in a great scheme, and you got to have 10 other really good players around him to do that.
Yeah, so let's kind of keep talking about edge rusher because I'm glad you mentioned this about drafting these guys. It's, of course, you want to see if your best available also kind of fits your needs. You really want them to equal each other. But what's also important to remember is that this edge group is a really deep group this year going into the draft. But what's even more important to remember is that can these guys fit into the scheme that Jeff Ulbrich wants, what Raheem Morris wants the defense to look like? That's the biggest question. We can't make a circle fit into a triangle when you're doing a puzzle. Can these guys fit with this scheme. So off that question, who are a couple guys that could be at 15 that would work for the Atlanta Falcons?
Well, one of the guys that I think was kind of mocked by a lot of people early on and would make sense is Mike Green out of Marshall. And the reason why is because if you want a guy that's got the production, he showed that he's got the production, okay? Leading the FBS in sacks this past year, maybe a little bit undersized when you talk about some of the other players coming out. He's 6'3", 251 pounds. But as I mentioned, led the FBS in sacks with 17 this year, 22.5 tackles for loss, the best true production in this class. A lot of people talking about the fact that he's got a huge motor, which means he's constantly going nonstop. Well, there's also people saying that him going nonstop also makes himself a little bit tired. Guess what? As a coach and a former player or a player that would be playing with him, I want the guy that has a big-time motor that's going to give you everything he has every single snap, and then I'll pull him out for a rep or two to let him catch his breath and put him back in there so he can terrorize opposing quarterbacks. So there's kind of this division in this draft between guys that have gotten production at the college level and guys that maybe the production doesn't quite fit what the prospect shows, but Mike Green is not one of those players out of Marshall. So I think early on and even coming into tonight, he's one of those popular selections for Atlanta because he's somebody that has gotten it done at the college level. Now, some people might argue that it's at a little bit of a lesser competition level. You know what? We could sit here and we could give examples all day long of guys that played at a lesser competition level than the SEC or the Big Ten or the Big 12 and had extremely successful careers in the National Football League. So it's definitely a possibility, and he's been a very common name mocked to the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to give you another guy as far as production goes, and that's Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College. He was actually second when it comes to sacks in the FBS this past year. Another guy that got after the quarterback. 16.5 sacks, the Ted Hendricks Award winner, which is the award given to the nation's best defensive end. Now, maybe a little bit slighter as far as the height goes at 6'2.5", 250 pounds, but he's got a lot of versatility, and the fluidity is what a lot of people are talking about. He moves extremely well, the ability to get around blocks. Whenever you get a guy that's a little bit of a smaller frame, Taylor, everybody wants to know, well, how is he going to be able to take on run game? How is he going to be able to take on these big, physical offensive tackles in the National Football League? It's hard to find a guy that possesses both of them. The physicality to stand up to a 6'6", 330 offensive tackle, and the speed and the quickness to get around somebody into the backfield. But I think some of these guys, you look at production, those first two guys showed at the college level, they got the production that warrants them being a first-round selection.
Gotcha. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the corner position. As we talked about a little bit about A.J. Terrell earlier today and how he's kind of, we don't really know what's going on across from him. Of course, Mike Hughes signed a 3-year deal, but why does there still need to be a conversation about the cornerback position?
Well, I think you look at A.J. Terrell, and he was a guy that was drafted in the first round, still with the organization, considered a lockdown corner, and somebody that the Falcons feel like they're going to have on that starting defense for years to come. So maybe finding somebody that can continue to build in that same role as A.J. Terrell over the years. And the first one I'm going to give you is Will Johnson. He's another guy that may not be available when the Falcons select at 15, but should they decide to go corner with this first selection, he's a guy out of Michigan that's played at an extremely high level, did have a little bit of injury issues this year, but he was still a third-team AP All-American, basically missed the second half of the season. All right, 3 career pick sixes, which is a school record. Remember, Charles Woodson played defensive back at Michigan back in the days, and this guy right here holds the school record for pick sixes. I got a chance to see him 3 times this year. Well, Michigan 3 times this year because I had them on my schedule with Westwood One Sports, and he's one of these guys that just is a natural mover at the position. You see him here up on press, doesn't have any fear on getting up in somebody's face, makes a break on the football. Great shot of him up and run support, which you need from the corner position as well. His ability to diagnose plays, I think, is one of the big strengths that he brings to the table. And again, another guy that's probably not going to be available to the Falcons at 15, but you never know what's going to happen. And if he is still available, that playmaking ability right there might be something that Terry Fontenot, Jeff Ulbrich, and Raheem Morris are definitely interested in. Now, you want to talk about another prospect is Jahdae Barron out of Texas, another guy that I got a chance to see him a number of times this year. To me, he is the perfect combination of a game-ready corner right now. You could probably shoot holes in a lot of the other prospects due to injuries, lack of experience. Some guys are shorter. Some guys are taller. They're not as fast. Jahdae Barron fits the bill in a number of different categories. On a defense of Texas that has been improved over the years, played at an extremely high level, obviously in the SEC this year, and continued to excel. How about a 4.39 40 this year? 5'11", 195 pounds, first team All-American, Thorpe Award winner, which is given to the nation's best defensive back. 5 interceptions in 2024, 8 of them throughout the course of his career. I think he can play out on the corner. I think he can play man. I think he can play zone. I think he can play nickel. I think you could train him to play safety if you needed to. This is how good I think this player is. To me, the most well-rounded corner and NFL ready in this draft. I have a hard time finding a lot of holes in his game, and I think he continued to prove that for the Texas Longhorns this year.
I like that you bring up both of these players because I don't know that either one of them are going to be there at 15. I think that might line up with the best available, also kind of fits your needs a little bit. But here's the thing with both of those guys. I think they could be starters right now coming into the league with this Falcons defense. I think you could put either one of those guys across from A.J. Terrell and then slide Mike Hughes in the nickel position. I think whatever they choose to do with the cornerback position, he's got to be able to play corner and he's got to be able to play nickel. And I do think that Mike Hughes and whoever that corner is, they will kind of switch in and out of those two roles. Let's get to the last and final biggest need for the Falcons. You have the linebackers.
I got linebackers, yeah, and I got to name another one that I don't think is going to be available. But Jalen Walker, if he's available, you run the card up to the podium and hand it off because he gives you so many options. He showed throughout the course of this season that he can get after the passer coming off the edge. But guess what? If you need him to play linebacker, he can stand behind the line of scrimmage and sit on that second level. And how about this? You get some options with Caden Ellis. You put him back behind the defensive line. You put Caden Ellis on one side. The next play, you put Caden Ellis back in the middle and you put Jalen Walker on the other side. I think he brings so much versatility, tenacity, that guy that hits hard. He comes with a purpose. He comes with, I call, rude intentions on the defensive side. I think if Jalen Walker's there, you go ahead and take him. But if he is not there, another guy played in the SEC, and Jahad Campbell, I think, is the hot name. Again, may not be available at 15, but he is a versatile player that's played at an extremely high level. Another one of those guys that when he gets off the bus, he looks the part. 6'3", 235 pounds, 4.52 40. First team All-SEC, led Alabama in tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and you can see him here dropping back in coverage. So not only do you get his ability to get in the backfield, to make plays on running backs, to make plays on the quarterback, you can drop him back because of his athleticism, and he can make plays in the passing game as well. So I think when you look at true linebackers that's not considered an edge, Jahad Campbell can end up really fitting a lot of pieces for a defense. I think one analyst that I looked at said consistent open field tackler, fluid blitzer, impressive cover talent. Yeah, you can just kind of sign me up for that because that's 3 pretty good traits right there. And I'm going to give you one other name, actually played in the SEC as well, Demetrius Knight out of South Carolina. 6-year player, so you're looking at a lot of experience. Started his career at Georgia Tech, then he went to Charlotte, and then finished his career at South Carolina. 2 really good prospects on the defensive side of the ball coming out of South Carolina this year. But Demetrius Knight, 6'2", 235, ran a 4.58 40. Again, I mentioned 6-year player. So what does that translate to? Mature, instinctive, has seen a lot of football, knows how to diagnose things. And again, not only is he extremely physical, but he's athletic. He can run sideline to sideline. He can cover running backs coming out of the backfield. And he's got some Falcons ties too, a cousin to D'Angelo Hall that I played with. And we talked a bit about this on Falcons Audible the other day. He's got some royalty in his family. Gladys Knight, he's a distant cousin along with Aretha Franklin. So Dave Archer was making the joke. Just sign him up for the rookie show. Just see what he can bring with that type of background that he has, but an extremely talented player in his own right.
All right, so we've got the edge, we've got corner, and we've got linebacker. Those are the top positions for you going into the draft. We'll see what the Falcons decide to do as we go throughout these 3 days. But we've also got a special guest in the studio with us, of course, Dave Archer, in here talking about who the top prospects are for him that could be sitting at 15.
All right, guys, great job of breaking down the needs. Now let's look at my top prospects that might fill some of those needs. I want to take you to Athens, Georgia, and introduce you to Michael Williams, the outstanding edge rusher from Georgia. Now, if you play for Kirby Smart, you're well schooled in how to play defense. Watch him here as he plays the run game, that college run game, maybe zone read going on here. But Mykel Williams does a great job of staying at home, not taking the fake to the inside, going to take the quarterback away. But what you're looking for is you want him to rush the passer, right? You want him coming off the edge, and that's what he can do. He's going to come off the edge here. Watch the bend, the length, the speed, the power to get through the tackle. That's where he's working against an NFL tackle right there. He just went by and raked the football out. That young man's going to be drafted in maybe the first round as an offensive tackle. Mykel Williams just went right around him. But here's ability, continue to play the run game and the pass game. Length, 6'5", 265 pounds, 4'5", 4'6'5" in the 40. Outstanding speed, quickness, and length. That's what makes Mykel Williams an outstanding pick for the Atlanta Falcons. Now let's shift inside. Kenneth Grant, big dude on the interior for Michigan. Had two guys in there. Mason Graham, you had Kenneth Grant. Graham may go early. Grant's going to go early as well. This guy's an outstanding player against the run and the pass. Do not single this guy. 6'4", 335-pounder. I call him the dancing bear. There's why. That's in the Rose Bowl 2 years ago against Jalen Milroe. We all know how good an athlete Milroe is. They crush him in the pocket. But here's where I love it. He's got a little stunt game working against USC here. We got a better look of it here coming up real quickly here. Kenneth Grant, interior, watch him stunt. Yeah, he's going to go this way. You got to crashing, come around. Don't single him. He's going to crush your pocket. He's going to crush your quarterback. Kenneth Grant, outstanding player from Michigan, one of the big guys in the interior. Now, you guys mentioned safety. You mentioned corner. I'm going to throw in nickel on top of that. This guy fills it all. Jahdae Barron out of the University of Texas. Think Earl Thomas of the Legion of Boom, the old Texas player that went to Seattle and was a star up there. Think about this guy now, 4.39 in the combine at the 40. His ability to track the football. This is one of the toughest things a corner has to do, is to try to turn, run, keep your perspective where the receiver is, and find the football. Outstanding job here. But here's where he does his best work. When he's in the slot at the nickel position. How many times do we see guys make plays in the interior? This guy has a great play strength at the point when the football arrives. Here he is sorting out a little switch move, comes to the inside, gets the tackle, you're off the field. He can play corner, he can play safety, he can play nickel. Jahdae Barron, the Thorpe Award winner, would be an excellent selection for the Falcons. Those are my picks. Let's see who's next.
With the 8th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Drake London, wide receiver, USC.
Or fans who may not know who you are, what kind of player do you expect from you?
Somebody fearless, somebody who wants to work, somebody who wants to get W's.
Watch the tape. It's very easy. And London will take it. It's gone up top.
You're talking about 50-50 ball. There's nobody better than Drake London to go get the football.
Michael going to zip it again, this time London. He held on, and that's an Atlanta touchdown.
Okay, Rack, well, we've kind of talked ad nauseum of who could be there at 15 and what the Falcons will do tonight. That's one pick, though. They've got 4 other picks. They've got a 2nd, they've got a 4th, and 2 7th-round picks. We've seen in the past that the Falcons do really well in those later days, and they find these mainstay starters for this team moving forward. What are some other positions that could be picked as we go into day 2 and day 3?
Well, I think you look at the center position, as we talked about. Drew Dahlman left in free agency. Ryan Newsel looks like he's going to be the heir apparent at that position, but there's still time for you to bring somebody in as competition and also to build for the future, right? I think Atlanta, if you look at them, and I go back to a guy that's now in the Ring of Honor that I played with, Todd McClure. You had such stability at the center position, then you went to Alex Mack as well. So you had so many really good players at the center position. Not to say that Drew Dahlman wasn't. Obviously, he got himself paid in a free agent contract, but that's why it's so important that you understand that when you get an opportunity, you never know what's going to happen, because Drew Dahlman gets hurt a little bit last year. In comes Ryan Newsel, plays pretty well, gives the coaching staff and front office enough confidence that he could be the guy that ends up being the starting center. But I think it's also an option for them to look for some competition at the center position if they find the right guy in the draft.
Yeah, and I know that we talk about the offensive line. If you guys watch the pregame show, make sure to check that out in the fall. It's me and Rackley all season long for you guys. But I feel like almost every week we always talk about the offensive line and how good they are together as a unit. And now I could see beyond the center position, any one of those guys on the offensive line, getting depth there in those later rounds. Of course, we've had Gwynn come through. He was a later round pick. Some of these other guys were later round picks. I know that we talked about Drew Dahlman. He started, of course, he's with the Bears now, same with Grady Jarrett. Tyler Algier was a day 3 pick. All 3 of these guys were day 3 picks. I know that day 2 and even more so day 3 are not the flashiest, but those are the guys I feel like are the hungriest because they're the ones that are trying to make this team in July.
Yeah, I mean, these are obviously 3 really big impact players for the Atlanta Falcons, a couple of them coming under Terry Fontenot's guidance, if you will, or his drafting. Tyler Algier got off to a great start, and then they brought in Bijan Robinson, and I think Atlanta looks like one of the top tandem in backfields in the National Football League. And of course, we talked so much about Grady Jarrett, what not only he's meant to the Atlanta Falcons, but what he has meant to the city of Atlanta. Again, another late round selection. But we were talking about offensive line. I think that it's very easy that we could see a tackle or a guard ended up picked on the 2nd or 3rd day, because there's always a good time to bring in more talent there, because you've got 2 tackles and a guard that aren't getting any younger. They're still performing at an extremely high level, but you got to think what happens when those guys decide to hang it up, or maybe the game starts getting to them and the injuries start to stack up a little bit. How do you feel behind them? So it may be a good idea to look to day 2 and day 3 at the rest of the offensive line.
Yeah, so don't check out on us after tonight. Make sure to keep checking in on day 2 and day 3. But our Tori McElhaney sat down with Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris to see what they wanted this team to look like going into OTAs.
The draft is starting very, very soon. I know you've done so much work, you and your team, Kyle Smith, Ryan Pace, the entire coaching staff, to get to this moment. And I know it's not just pick 15 or whatever you decide to do in the first round, but as you're looking at the totality of this draft class, what kind of comes to mind as what this class could be for this team?
A lot of really good players in this draft, particularly the entire draft, whether you're talking about the first round all the way down through the draft, after the draft, undrafted free agency, the 8th round. It's all, there's a lot of really, really good players, and when you have a lot of confidence in your scouts, your staff, the coaches, and the way we go about the process, you know that we're going to be able to get some really good players at every level.
It starts over every single year. It's a brand new year. It's a brand new opportunity for us to go out there and really get after it again. It's a chance for us to show what we can do. It's a chance for us to build our teams. It's a chance for us to build our roster, build our foundation. And those things you're really excited about. When you're talking about adding new, exciting players to your roster, to the guys that you currently have, in order to go out there and try to compete for a championship is all you can ask for.
When you're kind of going through this year in comparison to last year, you know, last year, first year back here, first year working with Terry, Kyle, Ryan Pace, when you look at the process of this year, how has that process maybe fine-tuned to get you to where y'all are today?
I think it's one of those things when you go back and you always revisit the things you did. So we have a chance to do what we did better last year. You know, we can always do it better. So everything that we're doing moving forward is something that we're going to have a chance to even get better at, to improve on, to be better together.
Kind of a little bit different set of circumstances than last year and having to quickly get on the same page. Now you bring Jeff Ulbrich into the fold and what he's looking for in terms of defensive players. I'm kind of curious what you've learned about this process and how it's evolved.
With Jeff Ulbrich coming in, we spent a lot of time with him early on, right when he hit the ground, going through the prototype, the profiles of the type of players that we're looking for, going through the specific things for his defense, how he plays his defense, and what's going to be most effective. Cool thing about Jeff Ulbrich, and I would say this also about Zach Robinson, Marquise, really about all our coaches, is they're glass half full. So we're always looking at what a player can do. So we're looking at these traits and working at how can we amplify them and get the most of these players.
You know, I think the best thing about Jeff Ulbrich is that every position on defense, he's able to provide the ultimate clarity. So the clarity for a rusher, the clarity for inside backer, the clarity for a defensive back. And at the most part, what you'll hear him say a lot is really they gotta have these traits of heart, mind, fist. If they have those traits and they have all the profile things and the fits that we like, and they have the stuff that we talk about, our team culture, our team values, and we can bring those things in along with our business values, I think that's what we look for.
When you look at having 5 picks in this year's draft, 2 of which are 7th rounders, if you were to leave this draft with only those 5 picks, how do you feel like the roster overall would be set going into 2025, and do you feel like it would be set going into 25?
Yeah, well, the key is to make sure we feel about good about the players that we're drafting, again, in those rounds 1 through 7, and particularly in this draft. In every draft, you look at undrafted free agency, and there's good players, but particularly this draft, there's more draftable players on the board this year because of how everything's laid out. So there are going to be some really good players after the draft that you can continue to bring in. But when you have confidence in your staff and your coaches and the way you're going to bring people in, you look at every year, Tori, there's going to be players in the first round that didn't end up being good players, and there's going to be undrafted free agents that end up being good players. There's players that go to rookie camp every year that end up making impacts. That's just the truth. So you have to make sure that at every level you're really effective in terms of going through the process, bringing in players that you have a clear vision for, they fit your culture, and they're going to help you win games.
It's hard for me to argue with the team that we have together currently. I feel really great about our quarterback going into his second year, getting his first start from out the box. Some of the guys we have like Bijan Robinson, the Drake Londons, the Cal Pitts, all the people that we have acquired over the last couple of years to be able to add to those guys, whether you're talking about Caden Ellis, the Jesse Bates, and all the people that we have on our defense, our offense, our special teams, some of the people that we got in the offseason acquired those guys, be able to fill some of the holes that we had from losses or people that we lost or people that we can bring in. It's something that really makes you feel good about it. So whether you have the 5 picks or you get more, I think it's just better ways to improve your overall roster. That's something I look forward to. That's something that our organization looks forward to.
We're very close to y'all being on the clock, and I feel like there's some excitement brewing around the city, and I'm sure also brewing around this facility. So what makes you most excited, most interested in what could transform this 2025 roster and who this group of players could be?
Yeah, very excited. Like I say, going through this process and the way we work together in the process with the coaches, the scouts, the staff, the entire building, analytics, the doctors. There's so many people that work really hard to get to this point. But what I do know is we're going to bring in a player that in the first round that we have a lot of conviction on and that we believe in. The same thing on day 2, and we're going to keep working through, and we're going to do what's best for this organization. We're going to have a clear vision, and we know the way they're going to impact this team. So very excited about the work that's gone into it and excited to get going.
With the 8th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft.
Steadfast, constant, strong arm, athletic.
The explosiveness, the athleticism, his arm.
Michael, gunshot downfield from McLeod. Ray hauled it in.
The Atlanta Falcons select Michael Penix Jr.
I appreciate it. Yes, sir. I'm ready.
End zone. It is caught. Kyle Pitts. What a big-time throw.
You'll see a throw like, oh.
Throws left, and it is caught. Holy smoke.
He just gives you an additional wrinkle, just not knowing exactly what's coming.
Michael going to zip it again. This time London. He held on.
To be able to come here, obviously being in Atlanta, it's a great city. It's not far from home, so it was definitely a big excitement for me.
Okay, well, we've got about 15 minutes left until the NFL draft starts. So that means it is finally time for Rackley and I to make our prediction of who the Falcons are going to take at pick 15. Rackley, I'm going to let you go first. If you're got the GM cap on, who are you taking 15th overall?
So can I kind of build this up a little bit?
Go ahead. Build it up as much as you want.
Clear my throat here, okay? With the 15th pick in the 2025 NFL draft, the Atlanta Falcons trade their selection.
Okay.
And they trade their selection back. I'm going to give you a scenario here with the LA Chargers, okay? They're going to trade back to 22, and they're going to end up getting a 3rd and a 5th in exchange for this move. And the Chargers are going to move up because I think the Chargers are going to move up and try to find a receiver, maybe even a running back to pair in this offense and bring some more explosiveness. But the Falcons, they trade back to 22, and I'm going to say they select Mykel Williams out of Georgia. Now, here's what I will say. I have seen Mykel Williams anywhere from 8 to 28 in this draft. I have no idea where he's going to end up falling, but if he's still available and you make a trade back at 22, I think you scoop him up. You get a 3-down defensive end. What I mean by that is somebody that's on the field on 1st down, 2nd down, and 3rd down, and they bring you pass rushing ability. He brings you versatility. You can line him up inside. You can line him up outside. You can feel confident that he's going to be able to stuff the run, and he's going to do that very physically. But you've also got a guy that's shown that he's got the athleticism and the flash. He's still a little bit raw yet. He doesn't have the production that we talked about earlier with a guy like Mike Green. but he's got that raw talent that you feel like you can mold and develop into somebody that can be constantly causing havoc in the backfield. Listen, to me, this is a draft with the Atlanta Falcons. You talked about it, Taylor. They have 5 selections in this draft, okay? The last time they had 5 selections in a draft, it was 2006. That's not a lot of draft capital. So to me, yes, I propose to trade for you to trade back with the Chargers. I think this is a draft Atlanta tries to trade back just to pick up more draft assets, more reps at the plate, if you will. I'm a softball guy, softball, baseball analogy, okay? More reps at the plate. So it could be any NFL team, but Terry Fontenot has said 2 things. Number one, when it comes to a trade, you've got to have a willing and able trade partner. We don't know if that's going to be the case with the Chargers or any other team, and whether or not the compensation is going to be right for both sides, okay? But you've also got to find more players. He said this is a deep draft. There's a lot of really good players in this draft. I think if you drop back to 22, even anywhere in the 20s, you're still going to come away with an impact player that's ready to start for this team.
All right, we'll see if that happens. I think there will be a trade just in day 2, though.
Okay.
Trade down in the second round. We'll see what happens, because I do agree there needs to be a little bit more draft capital this year just because of the 5 picks, 2 of which are in the 7th round. I'm going to stay at 15, though, and I need you guys just to hear me out. I know it's never good to start your discussion with like, okay, hear me out, but hear me out. I think that they're going to take Shamar Stewart, the edge, out of Texas A&M, and I know everyone's going to say, okay, he doesn't have the sacks, he doesn't have the production. You mentioned it earlier. For a lot of these guys in the NFL, it is the prospect over the production. Let me name you just a couple of guys that you may or may not have heard of in the NFL. Number 1, let's start with Danielle Hunter. You know where he went to school?
I do.
Where?
LSU.
Thank you. 4.5 sacks in 3 years at LSU. That's an SEC school for the same league, same conference as Texas A&M. 4.5 sacks in 3 years. Over his 9-year career, he's almost in the 100 sack club. 99.5 sacks in 9 years. I don't know if you guys know how hard it is to get in that 100 sack club. It is very hard to do, especially in only 9 years. Let's talk about Micah Parsons, who is one of, if not the best pass rusher in the league right now.
A menace.
In 2 years, only 6.5 sacks. In 4 years in the league, he has had 52.5 sacks, and that's 12 or more sacks every season. You guys, it is not about what they do in college. It's who they can become in the NFL, what these defensive coordinators can refine them into when they get here. Yes, you talk about the production. Yes, I understand. Everyone talks about him only having 1.5 sacks every single season at Texas A&M, but you also have to remember where he's coming from and what his defensive coordinator wanted him to do at Texas A&M. He could come in here and become an immediate starter and be refined into someone like Micah Parsons, someone like Danielle Hunter, someone like Chris Jones. And I know that we are both giving edge rushers, but here's why I think that the Falcons will take an edge rusher. You look at a couple years ago with Trayvon Walker. He didn't have a ton of sacks either coming into the NFL draft. He was taken number 1 overall. This is the most important position for your defense. If you don't have an edge rusher that can go after the quarterback and get after the quarterback every single Sunday, you don't have a great defense. And I think that all starts tonight at pick 15 with the Falcons taking Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M.
Taylor, the NFL is so much about projecting. You're right. I mean, they look at things. I mean, there's a lot of prospects in the first round that may not have the stats, the numbers to back up where they're potentially going to be drafted at. But yet some of these teams are still salivating at the mouth because they just bring certain traits to the table that you just can't teach. Michael Williams had 5 sacks this year. There's a lot of people, I mentioned he could be selected 8. It could be 28, but people are salivating over what he could be in the National Football League. Think about all the quarterbacks that these teams gamble on and things don't work out for, right? It happens. It's the draft. It's a huge gamble, but it's a chance to get a very talented impact player, maybe a starter, maybe a Pro Bowler, maybe somebody that helps take you to the Super Bowl.
I mean, you are like singing, you're saying all the right things to me right now. Let's see what Terry Fontenot in the front office do as we continue to count down the minutes to the NFL draft. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the pre-draft show presented by Bud Light. Of course, the NFL draft will be on all weekend long on NFL Network, ABC, and ESPN starting tonight at 8 and continuing all the way for Saturday, April 26th. Thank you guys so much. We will see you in the regular season.